I was trying to make this video and they dropped off the mail and I had to turn it off and go get the mail and everything, and so I'm starting over and I'm going to try and make this a lot faster than the other one was because now I know exactly what I want to say. So here's my backpack. It's got all my gear in it. I'm going to talk about the big three. The big three are your tent, your sleeping system, and your backpack itself. The backpack I'm taking is a Gossamer Gear G420, and I have liked it so far. The capacity is about right. I would say probably don't need more than the capacity that's on it. Maybe in the 100-mile wilderness, maybe, but I'll figure it out. I'll be able to cram 10 days worth of food in there. I have an overkill sleeping system, and I want to talk about why you should consider that it's going to be way colder on trail than you realized. In years past, people will take like a 20-degree quilt, and there have been so many reports of people just shivering and shivering. You won't die probably if you have a 20-degree quilt, but you will be uncomfortable. And for me, I don't like being cold. I really don't like it. I'm from Florida. We don't do cold down here that well. It does get down to 20 here in the winter where I live in North Florida, but it's not a regular occurrence for us. It's kind of an anomaly. So I have had an opportunity to go outside when it was that cold and see what kind of temp I'd be able to sleep in. And I have a 2-quilt system here. So I made my, man, it's hot today. To be talking about this is so weird. I have a quilt that's rated to probably 32. And one that's probably more comfortable, close to like 50 degrees, but when they're stacked together, they create about 3 inches of loft. And that seems to be sufficient for my needs to keep me warm. Even if it got down to 10 degrees Fahrenheit, I'd still survive it, but I would be a little uncomfortable. But at 20 degrees, I'd probably be all right. So I just take one of the quilts, and they both have foot boxes. I sewed just a basic zipper on them. So I have one quilt that's like really big and poofy, and ordinarily most people would be fine with this down to 20. This quilt weighs I think 24 ounces, but like I said, I made it myself, and I put a draft collar on there, and I put a zipper on there, and I made it like I like really kind of made it what I wanted it to be, because I made the whole thing. And then I also sewed this, and I made this for my husband because when it was really cold in their house, I just thought it would be really cool to have a quilt that opened up all the way. So this is a thinner material. This is Tendy, and this is good probably down to, like, I would say comfort rating of 40. Like if it was 40 degrees and I had just this, I'd probably still be comfortable. Any lower than that, like if I was at 32, I'd survive, but I wouldn't be comfortable with just this. And what you need to kind of remember is that a lot of people, like when they talk about quilt ratings and the ratings on quilts aren't necessarily going to be what their actual use is. My suggestion is to get your stuff and really figure out what the range is for you. Some people sleep hot, some people sleep cold, some people sleep naked, some people bundle up before they get in bed, some people eat a lot of food, warm themselves up before they get in their bag. Some people at the end of the day are so tired that they just crash out and they fall asleep. And I wanted to make it so that the gear that I'm taking was going to be enough that no matter what happens, I'll be comfortable. So that's the only extra weight that I was willing to really add on to my gear at all. That, for me, that was the one thing that was non-negotiable, was me being comfortable at cold temperatures. For other people, it's different. There might be different things that you're like, this is the thing I need. Well, for me, I'm not going to have a good time if I don't get good sleep, and I'm not going to get good sleep if I'm shivering all night. So that's part of my sleep system. And then I have, this is the Thermarest Neo Air, not Air, the X-Therm. And the X-Therm is crazy warm, so yeah, there's like no chance that I'm gonna freeze on trail, and probably as soon as the weather starts to warm up a little bit, I will keep my mat because this is really warm. And then I also have my thin light mat that forms the back of my backpack so I can stack them. and then I'll stack my quilts. So I have 2 sleeping mats and 2 sleeping quilts, and somewhere along the way I will ditch probably a good 2 pounds of weight. I'll be able to send that home to my husband, and then if I don't make it up to Maine before it starts getting really cold up there, then I can have him mail the stuff back to me. But other people have said that, you know, in years past it was really cold in the beginning, and if it's really cold in the beginning, then if you hike at a normal pace, it's probably not going to be really cold when you get up to Maine. Or if you start late in the season and it's warm on the trail in the beginning, you might not need the stuff, you know, or you might need like a lot more stuff at the end of the trail if you're going northbound. And of course, southbounders, you've got a whole other way to do that. So I'm not giving southbounders advice, but it would be the same process. Just depending on when you start, look at the weather, check your stuff, you know. So that is my sleep system. I've got my thin light pad, my mat, my mattress, and I have 2 quilts, and that forms a little cocoon around my body that keeps me warm no matter how cold it is. Down is an insulating thing, so it doesn't actually make you warm, it keeps you warm. So your body still has to produce heat in order to feel warm inside of a down anything. But once you get it warmed up, it'll stay warm, and that's like awesome. It may take 15 minutes, 30 minutes to get comfortable in there, but that's what I wanted anyway. So then my tent is actually on the outside of my backpack here. It's this pocket right here is my tent, and I have a Appalachian 1 Pro. There's no inner, it's not the inner tent, it's the all one piece tent. It's a single wall tent, trekking pole tent. So it requires 1 trekking pole to set up my tent, and then I just stake it out. It's really easy. If you are worried about using a trekking pole tent, don't be. It's actually, once you get the hang of it and you've done it a few times, it's just so simple. It takes me way less time to set up my tent than any pole tent that I've put together. Those seem to take a lot longer for me. Like for me, I stake out 4 corners. I throw my trekking pole in there after the 4 rectangular corners are staked out. Throw my trekking pole in, stake one, stake the other side, and I'm done. And that takes me maybe 5 minutes at most to set up my tent. Like, it is really fast. Once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. So yeah, that tent that I have is the Appalachian 1 Pro. It weighs, I think, 24 ounces, so it's like about the same weight as one of my quilts. It's really light, really lightweight. And so other people have the double wall tent where, you know, you have, mine is a single wall tent. It's literally just like a tarp with mesh on it to keep the bugs out. It's basically just a tarp. And that's why it was so important to me to have the extra layers inside, because it'll block some of the wind. If it gets real bad, if it's stormy, it'll block some of the wind pretty well. But it doesn't insulate very much, not as much as like a double wall tent would. So probably other people who are taking tents that have poles and things like that, and then there's 2 layers of fabric on the outside of you, and then you're inside of the tent, that probably is going to be warmer than what I have. And so it might sound like I have too much insulation inside my tent, but really not though. In my case, it's a little more necessary. And I realize that I'm probably going to end up sleeping in some of the shelters along the way, so there will be nights where I don't even pitch my tent and I just crawl into a shelter and lay my stuff out. I'm going to be more comfortable in the shelter having more insulation. So I've heard it can get kind of cold. It's definitely drafty. It can be drafty. So yeah, so that's my big 3. The Gossamer Gear G420 for my backpack. Appalachian 1, these chickens are horrible. Shut up! G420 for my backpack, Appalachian 1 Pro for my tent, and 2 homemade quilts. And then I have the Thermarest X-Therm. The X-Therm is huge, makes a huge difference. And my thin light pad. That's it for the big 3, and then I'm going to go into some other